Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Back to Basics, the series where we say we're going to release every week and then don't. As usual, my name is Pastor Don, and I am here with apologies for the delay in the release schedule because I am but one human being and I'm responsible for pretty much all of the editing and releasing on things. Joining me as well is the lovely, the magnificent, the wonderful, the insert expletive here, Courtney Fraley.
Expletive.
I mean solely within the context of intensity modifiers.
Okay.
All right. So today we are continuing our journey through the book of Exodus, which, assuming I did everything right, you should be seeing on your screen right now. We are in chapter 6, continuing the tale of a young man named Moses and his involvement with a supernatural elder god who gives him the power to mess with the Pharaoh. Also, a lot of other stuff. But this is our God, and so it's all for good in the end. So we are uh, continuing on with Moses here in Egypt. We finished up our last with the end of chapter 5. And I'll say right off the bat, before we even get into the reading of this, that there is some degree of scholarly debate as to where exactly chapter 6 starts. Um, as you all know, I tend to use Robert Alter's translation for reference. Robert Alter starts chapter 6 with verse 2 of what we have as chapter 6 on screen.
The
Viewing the
NRSVUE, yeah, there's a break there. There's
right,
like a big line.
the NRSVUE
For those of you
has
who don't have video.
right, for those of you who can't see it. The NRSVUE has verse 1 and then a line break and then verse 2. Alter and others see chapter 6 is starting with verse 2 because that first line, then the Lord said to Moses, now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. Indeed, by a mighty hand he will let them go. By a mighty hand he will drive them out of his land. That is often seen as appended to the remainder of God's speech at the end of chapter 5. Kind of closing that out. Where is it? The I am the Lord kind of formula that's used in verse 2 is seen in a lot of ancient Near Eastern documents as formulaic for the beginning of a new phrase or statement or speech, particularly from a divine source. So it does kind of make sense that we would start with verse 2 instead. We're going to start with verse 1 because that's what's on the screen and we didn't read it last time. But it is worth starting with that minor little historical linguistic footnote. So that being said, dearest Courtney of all Fraleys, would you be so kind as to do the reading today?
Yes, I absolutely would. You're welcome.
Yay.
All right. And this one is the header on this one says, Israel's deliverance assured. Then the Lord said to Moses, now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. Indeed, by a mighty hand he will let them go. By a mighty hand he will drive them out of his land. God also spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty. But by my name, the Lord, I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they resided as aliens. I have also heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians have enslaved, and I have remembered my covenant. Say therefore to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will free you from the burdens of the Egyptians and deliver you from slavery to them. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great acts of judgment. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. You shall know that I am the Lord your God, who has freed you from the burdens of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you for a possession. I am the Lord. Moses told this to the Israelites, but they would not listen to Moses because of their broken spirit and their cruel slavery. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, go and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go out of his land. But Moses spoke to the Lord, the Israelites have not listened to me. Why should Pharaoh listen to me, poor speaker that I am? Thus the Lord spoke to Moses, and Aaron and gave them orders regarding the Israelites and Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to free the Israelites from the land of Egypt.
All right, I'm gonna say, why don't we stop here for a second?
Yeah, to
Mostly,
address the
mostly
whole Moses was a terrible public speaker.
there's that. Also, I'm pretty sure you might actually jump through the computer and kill me if I had you go into the genealogy with all the names that comes into the next section.
I don't, I mean,
Um,
I could take
but
a stab at it, but I don't want to offend people when I get it wrong.
there actually is quite a lot to talk about in this first section, though. So I think starting with that
Hmm.
is good. One of the things I will point out too is there's a shitload of idiomatic language in the original text of what's happening here.
Okay.
And
Bust
some
out
of
that altar
these,
and fill us in.
yeah, well, some of these idioms um, were translated into other languages with the assumption of that idiom intact, and some of them weren't. So one of the ones that I think we can look at is in verse 8. And this is important. Verse 8, I will bring you into the land that I swore to give Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. The actual Hebrew of that is, um, Alter's translation has it, and I will bring you to the land that I raised my hand in pledge to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. That's how Alter renders it. But the in pledge piece is not present in the original text. It literally is just, um, and I will bring you to the land that I raised my hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So the reason why we have in pledge in Alter's translation, and why we later have swore in the NRSVUE, is because the context of the time, the act of raising one's hand in that particular manner, particularly in an exchange situation, was a idiomatic expression of a legally binding pledge or vow. So later translations added that in, or changed the translation in accordance with the context by which that would be expressed. And this is probably weird for someone who's been going on about, fidelity to the original text. This is one of those cases where being faithful to the original text would just be confusing as fuck. Because if you just say, I will bring you to the land that I raised my hand to give to yada yada yada, all of a sudden you're like, what the hell does that mean? We don't have a context in which, oh, I raised my hand. Like, okay, well, that doesn't mean anything to us. We don't have that contextual meaning. So this is a case where a change was made to accommodate for
Yes, swore tracks
context.
more for that.
Say that again.
Sorry. Swore really tracks better than, raised my hand and pledged. It's
Yeah.
like to a modern sensibility. And frankly, I have to think for going back a ways. This is, I feel like, an excellent time to remind everybody that any English language Bible, no matter how freaking good it is a translation of the Bible.
Yes.
Um, it is it is impossible to translate something,
Mhm.
especially something as massive and ancient as this, and have
Yeah.
everything come through. That has to be
No, no.
studied. It's like studying Shakespeare.
Right. Now, another good example of this we can find in verse 2, I think, or verse 3. Um, where is it? Verse 3. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty, is what it says in there. In the original Hebrew, like, as we may have become well aware in our various exchanges over the last, I don't know, 70 some episodes, there's a lot of different ways that God is referred to. This particular reference to God is one that you may have heard. It's a Hebrew phrase that I know a lot of us, particularly out of evangelical circles, have heard. It's El Shaddai. And this is actually um, is used a total of 5 times in the patriarchal tales, as Alter puts it. And its origin is not entirely known. So this is one of the names for God where we're not entirely sure where it comes from. El is kind of the generic word for God or a god that is used in Hebrew. There are some anthropological and archaeological scholars that relate this to an older Canaanite god, which I take some issue with that as a firm connection, but I understand that there is some kind of connection that may be present linguistically.
Hmm.
But Shaddai is just confusing because we're not totally sure where it comes from. There's been a lot of different explanations. Some link it to mountain. And this is a shout out for the exactly one person in our community who's going to get this joke. As fans of British director Stephen Moffat's magnum opus Coupling can attest to, the modern Hebrew word shadayim, which means breasts, is also linked to mountain and comes from the same root. So there's an argument in Hebrew that this could be a reference to the Lord as my tits, but I don't think that that really carries. Um, that being said, um, there's not really been a satisfactory explanation for where the hell this phrase comes from, which is why a lot of translations render it differently. We know it's referring to God, we know it's referring to our God, and we know that it's different from the others. The NRSVUE goes with God Almighty because it's like, okay, we need to put some kind of emphasis here. It's they're not God is not using the tetragrammaton in this one. He's not using the four-letter uh, thing, the name, the YHVH, but it's still different. So that's another example of the ways in this passage. The passage got a lot of them. The ways in which translation just can't be done accurately
Mhm.
because there's a lot of what the fuckery going on here.
Mhm. Even
Uh,
if it was in the same language, like
yeah,
something this far removed would be completely unintelligible.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So even with this divine name, like we take it right at an altar here. El was the high god of the Canaanite pantheon, but it was also the Hebrew name for God in general. Like there's so many different links, and it's so far back that we can't really tell where it comes from now. And historical records, even going back, they weren't even totally sure as far back as we can tell where the hell this came from, or what exactly it's meant to mean.
did you say a Hebrew pantheon? Did I hear that right?
A Canaanite pantheon.
Okay, I was like, what?
Yeah, there are, as you may
Back to
remember from
basics,
our
but that's pretty basic.
you may remember this from our discussions around our good buddy Abraham and his, shall we say, interesting approach to life. That he started out by leaving his polytheistic family in the land of Canaan. Uh, so it's entirely possible that if there is some sort of literalist historical basis for these pieces of the Bible, it's possible that the word Ale could have come over with Abraham from or Abram at the time from his family. Like that would be a legitimate way. Like, he just started referring to God by Ale because he was used to that. Because we read these in ancient Hebrew, which is still a more modern version of the Hebrew they were using when these things were writ. So we have to imagine the language is developing along with the characters, if, of course, we assume these are historical depictions of actual people, which, again, is also up in the air. Anyway,
Just
I've gone a little bit afield.
history is so thick that it gets to a point where it's like you can't prove anything, so you need to not rely. And this was a big revelation to me as we've gotten through all this stuff. You can't get too hung up on whether or not you can prove that this happened because it's so freaking long ago.
Mhm.
It's impossible to prove something like that.
And this
That's
is
where you
why,
go off
for
the faith then.
Yeah, this is why, for example, I don't get into internet arguments with all those kind of atheist theobros who are like, haha, prove to me that the Bible literally happened. They're like, no, I can't. Nobody can. You're an idiot. That's not an argument you can get into because our interest is not in, is this a literal accounting of history? It's not in what happened. It's in why it happened. It's in what's
Mhm.
it for? What's the purpose of these stories? And it goes
What's it
beyond a
all for?
historical accounting because that doesn't really matter. Um, so yeah, so stuff happens. Any questions? I've done my little song and dance about the language. Um,
No, I dig that. I dig that shit. You know that.
yeah.
Um, no, it's quite a tirade.
Hmm.
I'm reminded of the whole, I'm gonna harden his heart
Hmm.
thing. I don't remember how we resolved that, but I remember thinking it was deeply, deeply freaking strange. Always have.
Yeah. Where we landed on that was that um, the hardening of the heart isn't God making it impossible for someone to change. It's God saying we're going to give them every opportunity to change, but they've already tied themselves up in such knots that they're not going to. Like we hope,
That's
but
not
we
what the
know otherwise. Um, and there is there's also an argument to be said about time. Like there's a lot of different ways it could go. And I'm not going to rehash something we've already covered in a different episode because I'm sure our
Sure.
listeners would kill me for that. Um, or at the very least, stop listening, which is something we don't want. But in short, it's not like most things in the Bible as simple as God saying, "Ha ha, you won't believe now." Like it doesn't work that way. Um, but in any case, what I take away from this first chunk at least is the theme. Um, this is God coming to an enslaved people saying, "I am with you. I am on your side. I'm going to liberate you and fuck those guys." Um, and that is very, very specific. Like, this is not God coming into an oppressed community and saying, look, there's nice people on both sides. We got to make sure that these people don't feel offended by what we're saying too. Like, we'll get you out, don't worry, but we got to make sure we do it without hurting anybody. Like, that's not what God is saying here. God is saying, okay, we're going to get you out. And if they want to come along with and they want to be in favor of liberation, great. Otherwise, well, fire, brimstone, weeping, gnashing of teeth, those things. Um, and I think that's important. Like, we, particularly in the American Christian community, we
Well, and
tend to,
we can put a link down below because you said you weren't going to explain it again, and I do understand I do recall exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, the
mm,
effective reason was that the justice isn't always quiet and nice.
yeah, and that's it. Sometimes justice needs to be rough. Like the journey needs to be rough, not just because, the necessity of justice, the achievement of justice being rough isn't just because uh, we want the oppressor to feel bad for what they did, but we also have the issue of collective memory. Like the escape of the Israelites, the justice brought to them by God, their escape from slavery under Pharaoh. We're still telling these stories untold thousands of years later. They have become a part of our collective memory and a key touchstone in our understanding of God as a God of justice. If God had come in and just said, "Look, I'm just going to unlock everybody's hearts. There will be peace. There will be harmony in the land, and you're all just going to walk out," it would have been great for the Israelites. It would have been great for the Egyptians. It would have been a great moment of peace in that time. But God's a big picture sort of, not a guy. Um, and they look out over the whole scope of human history and the utility of a moment like that, good for the people in the moment, not good for all the people in the future. So I have to believe that there is a purposeful intent in making this a shocking event. That was not to say God did not provide many opportunities for Pharaoh of his own account to change his mind. Pharaoh could have very easily um, turned everything around the minute it was revealed that dear Moses was in fact a Hebrew and killed the guy. And like, oh wow, I need to really reconsider how I'm treating these Hebrews. Like all the way back then, he's had opportunities to turn it around and did not do that. So now we have arrived at this point. God does not pull God's punches because God knows what's necessary here.
I guess the reason that I always got confused on it is that he says that he's going to harden his heart, but he doesn't. He doesn't need to. Or
Yeah.
God doesn't need to.
It's like saying I'm going to tell Elon Musk to be a billionaire psychopath. Like, you don't need to tell him to do that. He's doing that already. Like,
Again, one of those things where it's like there's just stuff lost to the millennia here.
yeah. I mean, it's like telling someone like Elon Musk to, abuse his workers and, pal around with Donald Trump. He'd just look at that and say, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm going to do that anyway. And it's kind of the same with Pharaoh. Like, I said, I'm going to harden
While
your
you're
heart.
at it,
And
make the worst truck anyone's ever seen.
yeah. Oh God, I've been seeing pictures of how that truck's faring as we're getting close to winter, and it's going to be a mess.
It's
Anyway,
bad.
yeah,
Anyway, yeah, as much fun as it would be to rip
just
on
spend an
that
hour dunking on Elon.
hilarious yeah, that hilarious monstrosity of a vehicle. Yeah, let's go back to the
Yeah,
Bible, which is drastically more important than anything related to that.
right. So in general, like this is where we're at now. Is God is basically God is declaring God's endorsement for the liberation candidate, which is Moses. And not, for example, Donald Trump of Egypt, Pharaoh here. So this is the goal. God said who God's voting for. Um, and it's made very clear the process by which that will happen. Now, we're going to take a moment here and diverge slightly into a bit of genealogy here, because Bible. That's really the best answer I can give to you. Why this genealogy is here, honestly, I don't know. I think my read on this is that the genealogy is here specifically to kind of establish Moses and Aaron's credentials going into the story. It's kind of like a resume. Like, we've set ourselves up the bomb in terms of the liberators here. And to demonstrate the degree to which they are the aforesaid bomb, we are going to now give you their genealogy, their resume, their list of references, if you will, as to how awesome they are, because they come from this line. So that the readers of the time will look at this and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. Kind of in the same reason why Jewish readers at the time read of Jesus and like, oh, from David's lineage. Okay, I know that guy. I know that guy. That speaks highly of him. It's the same sort of deal.
Yeah.
So I will go ahead and read the
That's
genealogy.
pretty common in the ancient world anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
the Iliad is full of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read the genealogy of Moses and Aaron. The following are the heads of their ancestral houses, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. Hanach, Palau, Hezron, and Carmi. These are the families of Reuben. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. These are the families of Simeon. The following are the names of the sons of Levi according to their genealogies: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, and the length of Levi's life was 137 years. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimei by their families. The sons of Kohath, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, Uziel, and the length of Kohath's life was 133 years. The sons of Merari, Mahil and Mushi. These are the families of the Levites according to their genealogies. Amram married Jochebed, his aunt, and she bore him Aaron and Moses, and the length of Amram's life was 137 years. The sons of Izhar, Korah, Nepheg, and Zichri. The sons of Uziel, Mishkel, Elzaphan, and Sithri. Aaron married Elsheba, daughter of Aminadab and sister of Nashon, and she bore him Nadab, Bihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. The sons of Korah, Asir, Elkanah, Abisaph. These are the families of the Korahites. Aaron's son Eleazar married one of the daughters of Putiel, and she bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the ancestral houses of the Levites by their families. It was the same Aaron and Moses to whom the Lord said, bring the Israelites out of the land of Egypt, company by company. It was they who spoke to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the Israelites out of Egypt, the same Moses and Aaron. On the day when the Lord spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, the Lord said to Moses, I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, that I am speaking to you. But Moses said to the Lord, since I am a poor speaker, why should Pharaoh listen to me? And that
It's like
is the end
it's roping back around to where they left off before they were like, oh, by the way, you need this genealogy.
Right. And so
Do
now
I
you get
have
to
that
Moses.
right? Am I
More or
finally starting to
less.
understand the way this is written?
Nope, you're getting the deal of it. And there is an argument to be made that verses 28 to 30 would do just as well in the next chapter. This is often the case because once the genealogies have ended, we started a new thought. And it's worth identifying too that in English methods of speaking, if this were being written as an English text, that's how we would do it. We would move that whole last little chunk of, and then now we're back to Aaron and Moses now. That would have started the next chapter. But in Hebrew text, it starts with the formulaic, the literary formula that starts with God speaking again, which we get, and the Lord said to Moses again in verse 1 of chapter 7. So that starts off with the Lord's response and not necessarily this whole little bit. So it's divided literarily weirdly in English, but you can just take my word for the fact it works in Hebrew. So that's the back half here. We got the genealogy, the resume, the CV of dear Moses and Aaron. Ending, I might add, on a note that I know evangelicals like to make a deal of as well, but I kind of do too. One of the few places we have that in common. Where Moses really quite kind of lies out that he's not a great public speaker. He kind of sucks at it. And I think it's like for the same reasons that evangelicals like to trump this, I think it's important that we do too. Like this is one of the places where we're totally in alignment that it did not matter in the slightest that he did not have skill, experience, or talent in this area. That was utterly irrelevant to Moses' ability to serve the Lord.
Hmm.
Now, your evangelicals will take that as anybody can try, and then we'll find a place that fits you. I would go in a different direction and say anybody can try and can be good at a thing as long as they are supported and endorsed. If God calls you to do a thing, not a damn thing the rest of us can say otherwise. And if we're standing up here saying you're just not good enough, then we're the ones who suck, not you. Um, because that's how God operates. So while I take in a different direction in the end than the evangelicals do, we have that same starting point. And I think that's really important that the message of God in this moment is the same then as it was now, that you are good enough. Mic
What?
drop. Well, it wasn't directed specifically at you, but I think it's a good one for you to hear too. But no, it's that is for everybody, really. Like we spend a lot of time telling ourselves and being told by others that we're not good enough to do the thing. And we are good enough to do the thing. The thing is given to us by God to do. And if God didn't think we were, if God thought we were good enough, then who the hell is anyone else to say differently, ourselves included? So, yeah, that's where I am
Yep.
ending the chapter right now. But you got any thoughts?
Yep. Well, that's just a nerdy one. I saw Aaron's son Eleazar, and I was like, I'm like, did you say Elazar? Again, a giant
Yeah,
Tolkien nerd.
I had a guess at you latching on to one of three names in there. Elazar would be one of them. Technically, it's Ele. Was it? Is it? Yeah, it's Eleazar actually. Um, that was one of the ones I thought. Another one I thought you would have jumped on was Phineas. Um, and the other one I would have put my bets on was Amram.
Amram.
Because you got one that's namesake as a
Honestly,
cartoon
one that
character.
stuck out to me as like a lot of them stuck out to me as sounding rather lovely.
Oh, they are.
But
I love ancient Hebrew names.
I love that let's see, who was it? Mirari had Molly and Mushi. I'm like, oh,
And
that's lovely.
Xenogears fans, shout out. We got another Zohar reference. Yay, that's there too. Um, you know, that,
But like
that
Aminadab
yeah, I mean
is
Dab's in there.
like a Elisheba, Ithamar. Like these are really, really pretty names. But I
Uzziel,
mean, especially
Mishael, Elzaphan. Elzaphan sounds like something the pharmaceutical industry is
Abiasaph
having as its
sounds
best
lovely
kept
too.
secret.
Hmm? Sorry, what?
I said, what one was it? I think it's Elzaphan sounds like something the pharmaceutical industry is holding on to as its best kept secret.
Uh,
But yeah, like a lot of these are
Abiasaph,
great
sort of
names.
lovely too. Yeah, just beautiful.
Yeah. Then we have Amram. That will just shoot through life like a missile. Um, all right. Anything else we want to tie into, or are we ready to call it for this episode?
I'm good.
All right. So that being the case, we'll stop for today. On our next episode, we'll dive into chapter 7 a bit. For today, I do want to invite you guys, having watched this episode, join us for church.
Hmm.
We are a church what does more than like put ourselves out online to really kind of invite your random commentary on the books of Genesis and Exodus, respectively. No, no, no. We're an actual church that does actual churchy stuff in a church-like way, churchily. And so I would really invite you to come join
Not
us for
not
stuff
churchily, not if you're used to like, yeah, what
in
churches
the way
become
that
in so
churches
many
ought to
places.
be.
There
Yeah,
we
I
go.
will. Yeah, I will say we started out as an online church, so we're based on a Discord server. So the majority of our kind of community social life happens there. So go to our website, which is linked down below. Join us on the Discord server. It's a great place to hang out. Nice people. You can chat with Courtney and I in real time sometimes too. Full force snark, by the way. So if you think this is bad, you should see us in person. But not only that, if you have if you happen to be one of the handful of people who our analytics are telling me are watching from Japan, we have an actual physical church in an actual physical place in Japan, and you can come visit that church and spend time with us personally. And we will cook meals together and do church things and have fun.
Well, you can spend time with him. I'm in Michigan, so
Yeah, but if somebody actually shows up based on the YouTube, I'm definitely going to wake you up in the middle of the night and call you for that. But yeah, so we have English services at the first Sunday of every month. We've got services in Japanese on the second and fourth. Occasionally, as astute watchers of our live programming may have noticed, we'll occasionally do an away game service. We did one just this last week, featuring my lovely wife, the Reverend Akiko, who was kind enough to do live translation for that service. So it was truly a wonderful service. But we've got those Japanese on the second and third, or second and fourth. We have an informal in-person only service on the third Sunday of every month. That one is not live streamed. So for you folks who are local, come hang out for that one. There's also more stuff that's going to be coming along in the near future. We've got other video series. We've actually got an education program we're talking about that is being put together as we speak. We have just a lot of things that are being built right now. And we're getting close to the Advent season as well, which means there's going to be even more stuff happening. So keep your eyes on this space for announcements of many, 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 many more things. But most importantly, if you can do what Courtney tells you to do, it'll make everybody's life easier.
just period. But like, also please like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, that does help. Like I joke about it. We joke about it a lot here, but like, honestly, the more faces our stuff gets in front of, the better it is for us. And if you are the donate and sort, you can find links to that in our description as well. It is not required by any means. Church is always free. But a few people who've talked to me lately who've wondered what the membership dues are for church and how much you have to pay of your salary to be allowed to come to church. I had to sit down and explain, like, no, church is free. Church is always free. And if someone's charging you a membership fee to go to church, that ain't a church, buddy. That's a cult. But we do have the
Yikes.
PBS model. Yeah, we do have the PBS model of supported by viewers like you. So if you want to be one of the viewers like you who is like you and gives money, feel free. We're definitely not going to say no, but it is by no means required.
And much like the viewers like you thing from PBS, thank you. Honestly, whether you're able to contribute or not, thank you. You
Yeah,
know,
we're just glad you're
thanks
here.
for being around. Yeah. Please
All
continue
right.
to be around.
Yes, we like having you around. And on that note, we will catch you later and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, y'all.
Bye.